Hello, and welcome back to Spin Cycle Live. I'm your host, Nathan Hale. Today, we have got another great episode for you of this awesome show. We have so much to cover, so much to get into. But first, if you're not following me on all of the social media platforms, please do that. All the links are in the description down below. Go read my Substack. Go read my tweets. Go read me. Watch me everywhere where you watch media. They're all scrolling at the bottom of the screen. They're all linked in the description down below. This show comes out every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. We are in season 3 of this awesome news program, and thank you all for sticking along for the ride and watching my face talk about the news, which I love to do for you all. We have so much to cover today. We have Jimmy Kimmel. So Jimmy Kimmel, I guess, is going back on the air. I heard. I guess he wasn't actually really fired, and he's being boycotted on these platforms. Jim Jordan reveals that there was even more censorship happening within the Biden administration than we knew. We have potential cause of autism that was released yesterday. If you watch the video before, we get into all of that, and then finally we'll end up with Trump is signing an executive order designating Antifa as an actual terror group, which we covered last week, but it's actually happened. It's for sure. It's done. So let's go and get right into it with our very first story. This comes from The Independent. So Jimmy Kimmel is back on the air, but with a few stipulations, basically. So Jimmy Kimmel Live won't air in several states as Nexstar joins Sinclair boycott. Jimmy Kimmel may have been reinstated by ABC following a short-lived suspension, but the late-night talk show will remain unavailable on some local networks as Nexstar Media joins Sinclair Inc. in continuing to boycott the show. Sinclair announced Monday that it would continue to preempt Jimmy Kimmel Live on its affiliate networks over the host's controversial Charlie Kirk comments. Quote, beginning Tuesday night, Sinclair will be preempting Jimmy Kimmel Live across our ABC affiliate stations and replacing it with news programming, the company shared on social media. Discussions with ABC are ongoing as we evaluate the show's potential return. On Tuesday, Nexstar indicated their intention to do the same, saying in a statement, quote, we made a decision last week to preempt Jimmy Kimmel Live following what ABC referred to as Mr. Kimmel's ill-timed and insensitive comments at a critical time in our nation's discourse. Quite the understatement, in my opinion. Quote, we stand by that decision pending assurance that all parties are committed to fostering an environment of respectful, constructive dialogue in the markets we serve. During September 14th episode of the talk show, Kimmel accused Republicans of using Kirk's death to score political points. He also joked that President Trump was grieving the conservative activist's murder, quote, the way a 4-year-old mourns a goldfish. The host was said to address his comments during Wednesday's episode, which was pulled by ABC just hours before showtime. Just want to give a round of applause to Sinclair and Nexstar here for standing on their grounds and saying Jimmy Kimmel hasn't been funny in a decade, and saying stuff like that on national television about the assassination of a major political figure, that's not going to fly. And people in our markets don't want to see it. So I'm here for it. I don't know which states Sinclair and Nexstar service. I suppose we could look that up. But I'm assuming they're probably going to be somewhat more conservative states, which would make sense. That's just off the top of my head what I'm assuming. I don't know if that's true or not. But I think this is great. This is fantastic. How funny would it be if they replaced Jimmy Kimmel Live? They said they're going to replace it with news programming. How funny would it be if they replaced it with, like, the Ben Shapiro show or, like, something like that? Like, some, like, conservative alternative media show on their ABC affiliates. I know it wouldn't happen. I know there's zero chance of that happening. But I just think it would be so funny. It would be so funny. Would it not? I'm frankly a little disappointed at ABC for reinstating Jimmy Kimmel's show. I mean, they should have just let the guy go and found someone different. He hasn't been funny in a decade, like I said. So I don't think I've ever seen a clip of Jimmy Kimmel ever being funny in his entire career. I challenge you honestly to send me one. So they don't exist. I guarantee you can't find one. So yeah, I think this is great. You know what I do love is I love that the left has been flipping out over the past week over Jimmy Kimmel's being censored by the Trump administration. The Trump administration is going after people who they disagree with. Blah 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 blah. They're trying to censor free speech. I love that the left has been going after the Trump administration conservatives for wanting to censor free speech when they themselves did it during the Biden administration. And that leads us into our next story. So Google warns foreign companies could regulate American speech. So Alphabet, the parent company of YouTube and Google, sent a revealing letter on its free speech policies to the House Judiciary Committee detailing the Biden administration's pressure as well as future threats to free expression from foreign regulators. House Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan, who is a Republican from Ohio, released a letter from Alphabet's counsel in which the company pledged to, quote, keep the digital ecosystem safe, reliable, and open to free expression. The letter declares that the COVID-19 pandemic, the Biden administration put Alphabet under pressure to combat narratives contrary to the administration's positions. Quote, senior Biden administration officials, including White House officials, conducted repeated and sustained outreach and pressed the company regarding certain user-generated content relating to COVID-19 pandemic that did not violate its policies. Alphabet reveals in the letter. The letter frames this government pressure as having created a difficult situation, saying that it, quote, grappled with these decisions over government-encouraged moderation. Quote, it is unacceptable and wrong that any government, including the Biden administration, attempts to dictate how the company moderates content, and the company has consistently fought against those efforts on First Amendment grounds. But this defense of Alphabet's free speech policy also contains a stern warning of future censorship by governments around the world. Quote, governments and law enforcement entities make legal requests in an effort to moderate content according to their views, and their demands come with significant penalties for non-compliance, Alphabet admits. Quote, Alphabet has a track record of pushing back against overly broad or otherwise inappropriate government demands for user data and content removals. Additionally, Alphabet applauds the committee for looking into two European Union regulatory frameworks, which it warns could become overbearing. Quote, the committee has taken important investigative steps to highlight that obligations under laws such as the Digital Service Act and Digital Markets Act may stifle innovations and restrict access to information, it says, referring to the controversial European Union regulations. We've known for a while that the Biden administration have been trying to censor and manipulate speech on different big tech platforms. They didn't like the way that COVID was being talked about and handled and all of this. This is nothing new. But honestly, it just goes to show the double standard in the world right now, right? Like, I can tell you that on the right, when we have threats of censoring or going after free speech in the U.S., we all stand against it. Like, Pam Bondi said that frankly atrocious statement that she was going to be looking into people preaching hate speech, and she was going to be prosecuting people who were saying hate speech on both sides of the aisle, which is just completely absurd, considering the fact that nobody knows what hate speech is. You can't make a definition of what hate speech is, and hate speech is free speech. And nobody should be prosecuted for simply having an opinion, right? People should be prosecuted, however, if they go online, they say they're going to kill someone. That's entirely different. If they're alleging a threat and an action to that threat, they should be prosecuted for it. But to just say the blanket statement of we're going to go after hate speech, that's just absurd, right? It's just absurd. You all agree with me. You know what I'm talking about. So when we deal with censorship on the right, we all stand in unison and say that censorship is never good, no matter who's doing it, right? Versus when it happens, the left's perspective is, oh, if they're censoring people that I disagree with, it's okay because I disagree with them, right? But when they censor someone who I like, it's just another attempt to go after the Trump administration and being against them, right? So with all this that's happening to Jimmy Kimmel is some of my point, right? You have the left going after the Trump administration for censoring Jimmy Kimmel, which there's no evidence to show that the FCC had anything to do with Jimmy Kimmel being suspended, and clearly they didn't, considering that he's going back on the air. And I've heard not one of the leftists apologize on the internet for accusing the Trump administration of censorship when Jimmy Kimmel is now back on the air. But if you remember, they completely ignored when this was happening all through the Biden administration when actual censorship was happening. When actually the government was infringing on the First Amendment rights of companies and pressuring them to censor certain people on their social media platforms. There have been lists that have been created of all those people who were censored. It was primarily right-wing influencers who were frankly preaching the truth about what was happening during COVID, and when actual censorship was happening. It's just disgusting. So I'm so thankful that we are past the Biden administration. It felt like it was never going to end, and at least we have some sanity. At least adults are back in charge for the time being. So speaking of new information coming out and new announcements. So the Trump administration yesterday held a press conference at the White House with Bobby Kennedy, Donald Trump was there, the president, FDA director Dr. Oz was there. All of these major public health officials were there. And they announced kind of the beginning of their findings when it came to going after autism. One of the big things that RFK Jr. campaigned on when he was running as an independent was finding a cure for autism and figuring out what was causing it. And that was a big thing that he did coming into the Trump administration, was setting out a task force to look into autism, looking for what was causing it and how symptoms could be alleviated for kids. Not because we want to, we want to have eugenics in this country, but because, frankly, having autism is not fun for anyone. And if you've ever met an autistic kid, you know that. Especially if you met a kid who's nonverbal, or you met a kid who does not have social skills, right? This is, the left has turned the whole autism thing into a whole, oh my gosh, they're trying to get rid of disabled people. Nobody's trying to get rid of disabled people. We're simply wanting to find out what's causing autism. Because no kid should have to deal with autism. It is a mental illness that does not enable you to do certain things in the world. And it's okay that there are a lot of people who have autism who are just fine with it, who are living perfectly normal lives. That's totally okay. But no kid should have to just live their life and be born with having autism or having any disorders for that matter, by the way. And I frankly don't think that's a controversial statement to say that we want all kids to be healthy, happy, and normal functioning members of society. Like I said, it's not that you can't be if you have autism, but it makes it a whole lot harder. I've known many people who have had autism, who have ADHD, who have had ADD, all sorts of different mental disorders, and it makes their lives harder. It makes life more difficult, right? It would be like saying, like the whole statement that, oh, we're trying to get rid of people with disabilities, I think is so absurd. Because imagine if we said something like that about like anxiety, for instance, right? Like if someone found a cure for anxiety, or found out what was causing anxiety and found a way that nobody would get anxious anymore, why would that be a bad thing, right? it's not that you can't be a perfectly functioning member of society with anxiety. It's not that you can't live a happy and healthy life with anxiety, but it makes your life harder. It does. It does. I'm sorry, it does. So I don't think it's controversial to say, but let's get into the story. So, potential cause treatment of autism revealed by Trump and RFK Jr. So on Monday, President Donald Trump and Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announced findings into the concerning spike in national autism rates, labeling one medication as a potential cause of autism and another as a potential treatment. It was announced that the use of, forgive me, acetaminophen during pregnancy is tied to an increased risk of autism. Acetaminophen is the active ingredient in Tylenol. So I'm just going to refer to it as Tylenol. You all know what I'm talking about. Tylenol is the name brand of the drug, but it's the active ingredient that's actually the linking substance. So it's one of the most widely used medications globally for pain relief and fever reduction. So Trump also talked about vaccines, saying he believed vaccines needed to be spread out over a child's life, suggesting what's known as a delayed schedule. Kennedy said later in the presser that HHS is also looking at vaccines in connection to spiked autism rates. It was also revealed that the drug leucovorin, also known as folinic acid, can potentially help treat autism symptoms. A physician will need to prescribe the drug for this use. The Daily Wire's Morning Wire podcast host Georgia Howe spoke to FDA Commissioner Marty McKay on Monday about this announcement. He emphasized that it's vitally important to let the public know about this potential association. Quote, "We have an epidemic of autism that has increased 400% in the recent decades, and we don't have a known cause," he explained. Now, this may be a cause, but when you have enough evidence to suggest an association and you have no plausible cause, we have a duty to notify parents and doctors. Quote, "We now have good data from large studies, and the Harvard School of Public Health dean has made a very conclusive statement that he believes the association is causal," McKay explained. So when you have that weight of evidence, you have to take it seriously and err on the side of safety, especially since the vast majority of low-grade fevers do not need to be treated. On the issue of treating autism symptoms with leucovorin, McCary said, "The drug has been around for nearly a century. However, only recently have we recognized that some kids with autism actually have an autoimmune disease." He explained, "The mechanisms may be that the body is creating antibodies that block the folate receptors of the brain, restricting the availability of folate receptors on the brain, restricting the ability of folate to get to the cerebellum." It's a mouthful. I'm not a doctor. It's hard for me to say these words sometimes. I'm not that kind of scientist. And so what that does is actually creates a situation where you could have high levels of folate in your diet. So that's pretty much all I want to say. So, if you're someone like me who has followed all of this for years now, this is nothing new to you. This is nothing new to you. You've learned no new information. I'm not surprised at all. This sounds exactly like what I've been hearing for literally a decade now. If you want to know what I have been hearing for decades now, is that autism, ADHD, ADD, they're all caused by a variety of different things. For example, diet. For example, physical activity. For example, addiction to screens. For example, medications, vaccines. They're caused by a variety of different things. So I'm not surprised at all that a causal link between Tylenol was found to be linked back to autism. Is that the only thing that's causing autism? And will taking autism while you're pregnant make your kid have autism? Or taking Tylenol while you're pregnant make your kid have autism? No, I don't think so. But I'm sure at certain levels it can. And there are people who genuinely take Tylenol like candy, and they take them like really frequently. And I would not be surprised if really high levels of Tylenol in the system can somehow affect the fetus within you. I would not be surprised at all. Taking one or two Tylenol, I don't think would necessarily be an issue. I would definitely err on the side of trying not to, but we have learned new information, but we also haven't learned new information. So let me tell you what we haven't learned. Like I want to know like what were the levels that were found to cause autism? Like was it did they genuinely find that taking one autism sorry, I keep saying autism tablet. One Tylenol tablet caused autism, or was it taking like 500, right? Because there's a difference. So and that needs to be obvious. And I want to know what other research is coming out. So I trust Department of Health and Human Services, led by Bobby Kennedy, to find all the available research and all the available evidence and conduct new research into this. This is just the first of many press conferences that have been held regarding all of this. And I'm excited to see what the findings suggest. I will say, I'm extremely happy that for the first time in American history, we finally have an administration that is looking into what is causing autism. We finally have an administration that's willing to admit that pharmaceuticals could have adverse effects on kids. Like we in the sane community of the right have been saying this for years now, that this could have an effect on a fetus, this could have an effect on a child, taking medications, taking certain vaccines, right? All of this. And I'm so glad that we have an administration that's actually willing to look into it and provide us research and provides all the research, right? Like, I remember if you watched the HHS interview that Bobby Kennedy gave in front of the Senate, he mentioned how there was research that showed a link between vaccinations and autism in boys in Georgia, and that evidence was destroyed by the CDC. It was not released in their report that they gave, and Robert Kennedy released that information in front of the Senate. I mean, we've had an administration for years that has been literally destroying evidence. This was all back in 2002 this happened, and we're just now learning about it in 2025. So what other evidence is out there that has been destroyed or has been pushed under the rug or has been put in some filing cabinet that we don't even know about because it was never released because it went against the narratives of the pharmaceutical companies? I'm interested to know. So, like I said, I think that there is a whole variety of things. I don't think that Tylenol is the only thing. I genuinely believe that there's a lot of other things out there. I'm interested to see. My last point on all of this is, why was Trump talking during this? If you watch the presser on this, Donald Trump provided literally nothing to the conversation. He was giving a whole lot of his personal opinions and what he thought parents should do and everything. Parents don't want to hear what Donald Trump thinks. Parents want to hear what the doctors say. Parents want to hear what the actual science is. I don't know why Donald Trump was talking during this. He like I said, he provided literally nothing. So I hope that they take that to heart in the future when they have future press conferences and all of this. The president can stand the sidelines and let the actual doctors talk. So that's just my opinion. I take this a little bit to heart as someone who takes things like this very seriously. And this is not Donald Trump's forte. That's all I'm going to say. So with that, let's go and move on to our last story, which is Donald Trump's forte, which is signing executive orders. The man has been doing them like crazy. So President Trump signs an executive order designating Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization. So President Trump signed an executive order on Monday designating the shadowy left-wing group Antifa a domestic terror organization, according to the White House. The order comes after Trump teased slapping a terror label on the radical anti-fascist group last week. Quote, "I hereby designate Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization," read the president's order. quote, all relevant executive departments and agencies shall utilize all applicable authorities to investigate, disrupt, and dismantle any and all legal operations, especially those involving terrorist action conducted by Antifa or any person claiming to act on behalf of Antifa, or for which Antifa or any person claiming to act on behalf of Antifa provided material support, including necessary investigatory and prosecutorial actions against those who fund such operations. The president cited Antifa's pattern of political violence designated to suppress lawful political activity and obstruct the rule of law in making the designation. Now, Antifa has been a thorn in the side of all rational Americans for like a really long time now. I mean, I feel like I remember hearing about Antifa when Obama was like in charge, right? I feel like Antifa's been around like a while now. And we've done nothing about it. Why is that? Why have we done nothing about it until now? Why has it taken this long for us to recognize that an organization like Antifa, who goes and burns down cities and commits crime, and all on behalf of being anti-fascist, is in fact a domestic terrorist group, right? Maybe they're not a domestic terrorist group like you might find in the Middle East. They're not going in and bombing buildings, for example, but they certainly are causing crime and harm to happen in the American public. So, fantastic. I'm glad we're doing it. I hope we get organizations like Antifa shut down. They provide literally nothing to the United States. They only provide pain and suffering. And frankly, people who support organizations like that are disgusting, and you have no idea what you're supporting, right? The people who support Antifa are the same people who support Queers for Palestine. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Well, thank you folks for watching today's lovely episode. It was great to spend this Tuesday with you. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you have suggestions on what we could do in the future with the show, please let me know in the comments down below. Please send me a message on X. Let me know how I'm doing. And yeah, I hope you are all doing really good. And yeah, I appreciate you all supporting this show and continuing to watch it episode after episode, and our audience is only growing. So yeah, we will be back here on Thursday with another great episode. Make sure you're following us on YouTube as well. I will be having a YouTube video coming out very soon covering gerrymandering, my opinions on it, what's been happening in Texas, what's going on in Missouri, all of these different things. They'll all be going up on YouTube very soon, so I'm hoping to get that up at some point. It's recorded, it just has to be edited and uploaded. But with that, I have been Nathan Hale. This has been Spin Cycle Live. I will see you all on Thursday. Peace out.